Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to Black Man Speak. I am your co-host, the J.R. Stewart. My partner in crime, the Tommy D. Duncan III, will be on momentarily. So he's trying to resolve an issue that we're having with Instagram, with our Instagram platform, streaming to it. So there are five platforms that we stream to. Uh, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly Twitter. And so there's a problem with the Instagram uh, streaming account hookup. So Tommy set that up. So he's actually working on that, trying to get it resolved. So he told me to be on in a few minutes. So while we have that time, I'm going to we'll do the ancestry and 'cause I think he wants to do the late great Tony Brown, one of my frat brothers, who recently passed away. That may be Tommy there. So is that the Tommy D. Duncan the third?
Yes, I'll be joining momentarily.
Okay. Well, I'm just holding down the fort till you come on. So just go ahead and take your time. There he is.
All right, and I've got a little few things going on, so let me get some things fixed here, and then I'll be ready to go.
Okay. Well, I'll just talk with the audience until you're ready. So anyway, like I said, Tommy was taking care of an accounting configuration issue with Instagram. So hopefully he got that resolved and he'll be back momentarily. So I'm going to go ahead and, while he's doing that, do our legal segment, which last week I think I covered how to deal with a strategy for how to deal with law enforcement if you get pulled over for a ticket. And to do the segment justice would take a lot more time than I had. So decided to divide this up into two or three sections. So today I'm going to talk about exactly why you do the things that I recommend that you do. The first thing is pull over safely to the right. Of course, everybody knows that, and roll your windows up and lock your doors. And the reason you do that is because there are four classifications of fact gathering, which is what officers are. They're fact gatherers, and they do investigation, and they're investigators. So those are the two primary jobs in law enforcement. And so with facts or information, there are hunches, which is the lowest level, which there's nothing that you can do about a hunch. Law officers cannot act on a hunch. They can't pursue you. They can't question you. They can't do anything if they just have a hunch. The next level is what they call reasonable suspicion. Now, reasonable suspicion, which you always hear officers say, although they leave out the most important part, they have to have reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed or is going to be committed or has been committed. So they always leave that part off and they just say reasonable suspicion. But reasonable suspicion means that there's some element that allows them to do an investigation. Doesn't mean you're under arrest, but they can detain you. They can put you in handcuffs. They can throw you in the back of the paddy wagon. Um, supposedly for your own safety or their safety. It doesn't matter. I mean, there are court cases that give them permission to do that, the right to do that, and cops abuse it all the time. It's supposed to be for safety, but no one even questions whether they're safe or not. Now it's become so acceptable for them to do it, they just do it if they want to. So it's at their discretion. But if they ever ask you to get out of the car, get out of the car. When they approach your car, windows up, all the four windows are up, doors locked. And the reason you want to do that is because if your doors are open, sometimes officers will open your door so they can look inside. And then anything that's in plain sight falls under the plain sight doctrine. And they can argue in court that by you having your doors unlocked, that you gave them implied permission to open the door. Because if you didn't want them to open the door, you would have locked the door. So for that reason, lock your doors. The other thing is roll all the windows up and only leave about a 2 or 3 inch crack, just enough to get If you want to hand them your license, you can, or your insurance, or your registration, or inspection. You can hand it. You only need about 2 or 3 inches window crack in order to do that. Now, the law does not require you to hand your documents over. These are your documents. These are your personal items. You own these, and you do not have to. There's no law that says you have to give them to a law enforcement officer. What every all 50 states have done is put language in that you have to present, show, or display. So you can hold your documents up to the window and they can copy your information from that, from looking, but do not hand it to them. Because if you hand it to them, now you're at their disposal to hand it back to you. You know, good officers don't mind giving it back to you if you give it to them. Bad officers will use that as an excuse to hold you hostage if they want to. So my advice to you would be keep your windows up, display your information that you're required to, and then keep your mouth shut. The other reason you keep your windows up is because, like I said, I was talking, telling you about the hunch, the reasonable suspicion. The next level up is what they call probable cause. Probable cause is a little more tricky because it means there are enough elements there to arrest you. Now, it doesn't have to be beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not that level of jury instruction. But if a cop thinks there's enough there to place you under arrest that you've committed a crime or committing a crime, then they can arrest you under what's called probable cause. Now, generally, if you are arrested, there's a probable cause hearing that you go to where they have to prove the elements. They got to tell a judge exactly what they saw, what they heard, what what is it that they thought they have that gave them permission to arrest you, and the standard that they're judged by is what's reasonable to another officer. So it's not reasonable to you and I. We may think that we see a prescription pill bottle in the passenger seat and think nothing of it. Okay, you just came from the CVS and got your prescription filled. But an officer can look at that and say, oh, you're smuggling drugs and just putting it in a prescription bottle to make it look legal. So he placed you under arrest for transporting drugs. And until they send that off to the lab to get tested, they have no idea what's in that prescription bottle. This is why you got to be very careful when you're dealing with cops. Because you think that you're having a conversation and it's all about how you look at the world, but you got to understand cops look at the world totally different. Everyone's a suspect to them. There are no friendly conversations with these people. So be very careful. The best thing to do is present your documents as you're required to by law for a traffic stop, and then keep your mouth shut. Invoke your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. That you don't consent to any searches, and you don't answer any question without a lawyer. Keep your mouth shut after that. I saw a study recently that said 85% of the people in prison, 85% of the people in prison or in prison because they spoke. They basically gave the evidence, they gave up the evidence needed, provided the evidence needed to convict them. That if they just kept their mouth shut, that 85% of the people in prison wouldn't be in prison today if they just kept their mouth shut. They tell you that you have a right to a lawyer, you have a right to remain silent. I suggest that you invoke those rights, use them. Now, you can't just be quiet. The Supreme Court has ruled that you can't just say, I'm not going to talk and just zip it. You have to actually invoke the right, and so the officer will know that you're invoking the right. So just say, I'm invoking my Fourth Amendment right against illegal searches, and I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right, and I won't be answering any questions without a lawyer present. That wraps it. You don't have to say anything else after that. Now you can legally just keep your mouth shut, present your documents, let them go write your ticket. If you roll the windows down, this is why the windows are so important, and you keep it up. One of the ways they can search your car, if they're interested in searching your car, is they can say they smell alcohol or they smell drugs, alcohol or marijuana coming from the car. Now, if they say they smell it on your person, that's just reasonable suspicion. That's not enough to arrest you on. So but they can continue to investigate on reasonable suspicion. But if they say it's coming from the car, then the courts have ruled that that's evidence that a crime has been committed in that car. So you either drinking while driving, or you've been smoking weed while driving. Either way, both are crimes, and you did it in the car. So if the officer can smell that outside the car, then they have the right now to charge you for DUI or for or for DUI, or for drinking or being under the influence of drugs. And that way they can ask you to get out of the car, and then now they can legally search your car if they want to. The best way to avoid these headaches, people, keep your window rolled up. If they ask you to get out of the car, get out of the car, roll your window up, finish rolling your window up, get out of the car. If you have a remote keyless entry, lock your door once you get out. Don't if when you get out, they're going to try to bum rush you and tell you to get to the back of the car, put your hands up on the car before you can get any words out about invoking your rights or trying to close your door. But it's important that don't let them bum rush you. Get out of the car, close the door, lock it, and then proceed to follow whatever instructions, and then let them know that you're invoking your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, and you won't be answering any questions without a lawyer. If you do that, I guarantee you, if it's about a ticket, then it was just about the ticket. If you open your mouth and start talking about anything else, you don't realize how you can really get yourself in trouble, even over simple questions like where you going, where you coming from. If you say you're coming from Walmart and something just happened at Walmart, now they have some reasonable suspicion to think that maybe, just maybe, you were involved in whatever happened at Walmart. So do not invoke your fourth and fifth amendment rights, and then keep your mouth shut. Do not answer any more questions after that. Force them to write you a ticket so you can be on your way. So anyway, we have Tommy D. Duncan the third has joined us, so we can get on with our show. Tom, I was just giving some legal advice while you were taking care of our Instagram issue. So now that you're here, let's go ahead and proceed.
Hello, everyone. I am glad to be here. Want to apologize to everybody. Had a couple of technical difficulties with my internet today, and was trying to
We can't hear you
fix
too
it.
well, Tom.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Can you
come
hear me
closer,
better?
or yes, that's a little better.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, I apologize to everyone. I was having some technical difficulties today with my system, and you know what? Sometimes you just have to move forward with the show. But we want to thank everybody for joining us today, and we're going to go ahead and move forward, folks. I want to thank Jimmy, of course, for presenting episode two of his law enforcement, and in essence, how to stay out of being incarcerated, folks. Again, that's a very
Trying to
interesting
try,
topic.
Tom. I was telling the
85%.
audience here, Tom, that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court commissioned a study by the university, and they had the University of Pennsylvania do the study. And Tom, they determined that 85% of the people that used to work in the prison industry, technology sales to the prison industry, they said 85% of the people that are in prison would not be there if they had just kept their mouth shut. If they invoked
Wow.
their Fifth Amendment right to keep their mouth shut and not answer any questions about a lawyer, 85% of them, you'd be surprised how many people get to talking when they get arrested, thinking that they can kind of talk their way out of trouble. And I'm going to tell you right now, people, that doesn't work. They put you in those cuffs and you start talking, you're only going to dig the hole deeper. You're never going to climb up out of that hole from talking. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to pass it on to people. When you're dealing with cops, keep conversation to a minimum. You don't have to be rude about it, but just let them know, hey, I don't answer questions or talk to officers without my lawyer. And that's well within your right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom. Now we can't hear you at all, T. Oh, there you are.
That is weird. All right. I'm having some issues with the internet today, so again, I want to apologize about that. But we're going to go ahead and move forward. We're gonna acknowledge a couple of old stalwarts who we have lost, and want to take a few minutes to acknowledge Jimmy. I know both of these men you probably may not know personally, but probably know pretty well. And one of them, I think, Jimmy, used to be, of course, one of your heroes. First, we will start out with Tony Brown of Tony Brown's Journal. I don't know, for those of you who may have been around for a while, JR, he was a journalist and educator, someone who believed in advocating for rights for everyone, but most importantly, he focused and believed in entrepreneurship. And that's kind
Yes,
of
he
one of
did.
the things that Star Wars did. But he lived well into his 90s, Jimmy. We just lost him within the past week. And for those of you who knew Tony Brown, you knew his impact, you knew his legacy, and so we definitely want to give our honors and condolences to his family. He will definitely be the very, very, very a lot of people to be impacted, Jimmy.
Yeah, Tom. I mean, I got introduced to Tony Brown when I was in college when a sweet mate of mine gave me a speech of his, and I must have listened to that speech until the oxidized metal on the tape just wore out. You couldn't hear it anymore. But I had the pleasure of seeing him actually live when he came to New Orleans to give a speech, and yeah, he's always been just one of my life mentors. Tom, there's about five people that I consider life mentors of mine who I studied their life and tried to emulate them as best as possible. And Tony Brown was one of them. So it looks like we may have lost the feed from Tommy. But he'll be back. I'm sure he'll get the connection reestablished. But all that to say, people, is that Tony Brown made a major impact on my life. He talked about economics. He explained things in a way that I never saw before or thought about before. He helped me understand that when other groups oppose you, white people, Hispanics, Asians, it doesn't matter which group it is, sometimes when they oppose black people, they don't necessarily oppose you out of racism, they oppose you out of group survival. Well, he was the first person to help me understand the whole dynamics of group survival. And once I understood that, then I didn't go walking through the world looking at everything through a racist lens. If someone opposed me or was the opposite of my views, I understood that their group is locked in a battle against my group. And then sometimes it's just about group survival. Anyway, Tommy D. Duncan is back. So I'll just explain what Tony Brown meant to me, Tom. So who's our next ancestor? Oh, okay, Tommy phased out again. So I guess he's having trouble with his connection, so it'll return. Um, I don't know who the second person is, but like I said, Tony Brown meant a lot to me. Helped me understand the whole group dynamic when it comes to race relation. Also helped me understood that how black people are not deficient. He was a great historian to talk about historic figures in the black history and the great things that black people have done. Some things that are not taught in school, but his biggest impact on me was helping me understand the whole economic system. And how the suffering that black people that we go through is not necessarily because of racism all the time. A lot of it is just self-inflicting. That we don't do the things that other people do to get ahead, like come together as a group and invest. One of the big things that he talked about that was I thought was very good. He talked about, and I saw Farrakhan have a similar strategy also. Um, at that time, Tony Brown mentioned that the black fraternities and sororities and black organizations, professional organizations, spend about $2 billion a year on conventions. Well, his plan was that we plan 4 or 5 years out, and then we cancel one convention and take the money that we would have spent on the convention and buy four hotels: East Coast, West Coast, Southwest, and Midwest. Put one in Chicago. I studied his work anytime I got a chance. I watched him on TV on public access. He on the Tony Brown Journal, and I tried to follow his career as best until he sort of dropped off the scenes in the 2000s. And then I didn't really hear from him anymore. I figured at that point he had retired. But yeah, he was a great man, people. So it looks like Tommy is maybe moving to another room, maybe to get closer to his wireless router. I could see um, some movement in the background from his MacBook Pro. I think is what he has. I think I saw him moving. Looked like he was moving, so I think he may be moving to get closer to his router. So I'm going to apologize for the technical difficulties, and it does happen from time to time, people. So I've had my fair share of connection issues. My wireless router is upstairs. My setup, my office is down. I have an office upstairs too, but I moved everything downstairs for the most part. The most important stuff, just so I wouldn't have to go up the stairs. I'm still recovering from surgery last year and still going to PT, still fighting that battle. They're still holding me up, um, hell bent on keeping me in PT for life, it seems, rather than letting me discharge me and let me move forward. So, but that's another story I'll share with you guys some other time. And I guess while we have a little time waiting on Tommy D to come back, we do have some interesting stories, guys. I'm telling you, this is going to be a good show tonight. Um, One of those stories is the lady who shot the guy in the parking lot in Florida. I think at a Walmart. They were in some dispute over a parking spot, and I think this happened maybe last week or a week and a half ago. The last time I checked, she has not been charged yet. So they have gathered up all the information, and I think it's sent it to the state attorney general's office for them to investigate and decide whether they want to prosecute her or not. Florida is one of those stand your ground states, and in case you don't know the difference, there's stand your ground, and there's states that require you to make some effort to de-escalate or run away. So you can't claim if you're going to do a self defense claim in a stand your ground state, then there's no requirement for you to de-escalate the situation. There's no requirement for you to run away. There's no requirement for you not to use deadly force. Here in Texas, we have stand your ground state also, but we go even further to not just stand your ground for your personal protection. Texas has stand your ground when it comes to property. Someone's trying to steal the TV from your house. Well, if they're stealing your property and you have a weapon, you decide the only way that you're going to protect your property is to put this person down. Oh well, that family will be at a funeral in the next week and a half, and you'll still be living. So, yeah, so Texas has very liberal stand your ground laws. Like I said, our laws extend to personal property. Now, once they're off your property, yeah, it gets a little trickier then. So, but if they're on your property, even if they're running away on your property, you still have no duty whatsoever to not protect your home, not protect your property, and to the best of your ability, even if that means you're using deadly force. So, in states that don't have stand your ground laws, then you have a duty to de-escalate, to run away if that's possible. Um, you have a duty to do everything you absolutely can to get away and keep it from escalating. But if you have no other choice, and they have you cornered, and you have to defend yourself, then you have the right to defend yourself. So, for instance, oh, Tommy, you back? Can you hear us? Okay. I don't know if he can hear me or not. Can you hear me? Okay, you're kind of breaking up there, so I don't think you have a good connection still. So your picture is frozen, and the voice is kind of breaking up. It's real choppy.
Okay, let me try this.
So you definitely have some latency issues, or you have packet dropping, um, and so it sounds like you're underwater. But that generally, when you're talking about internet connections and wired connections, that generally means packets are dropping, or you have lots of delay. So it doesn't sound like it's delay. It sounds like you have packet dropping. Yeah. So so it may be kind of tricky tonight on the voice side, maintaining your connection. Uh, okay. So the other case that we have is the story about the young man in Florida, not Florida, Mississippi. Where he was out partying with some friends of his, all fairly wealthy, affluent friends. And they went to, I think it was Hunt Island, is what they call it. It's right off the shore of Mississippi. It's about 10 miles offshore. And so these kids will go there on the weekend and party, have a good time to get away from adult eyes and get away from the police and go out there and smoke weed, have fun, drink, have a good time. And then they all hop in their boats and then they sail back to the main shore. Well, he went out there with his friends, and then the friends came back, but he wasn't on the boat. And everyone that was on the boat said that he decided to stay on the island, and so they left. And to me, that makes no sense because if he came there with you, unless he's a marathon swimmer and can swim 10 plus miles out there in the Gulf of Mexico to get home, I don't see anyone saying I'm going to stay and then have the ride go off and leave them. But anyway, that was his story, and they're sticking to it so far. That he decided that he was going to stay behind on the island. Well, a couple of days later, um, the body floats up and he's dead. He drowned, and he's in the water. And so no one's been able to explain exactly how the body got into the water or what happened. So that's the other big story that we're going to cover tonight. Tom, are you back? Are we good? Okay, your image is frozen again, so don't know if you're still working on it. Okay, it looks like his image is froze. So I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to cover the first story, the Florida Walmart shooting in Florida with the lady. Now, I when I watched the video, I did see her make several attempts to walk away, to back up. Um, and I'm not sure this guy must be brave because I'm not sure that over a parking spot, there's not very much I'm going to be following this lady on to confront her when she gets out of the car and she has a gun and she's pointing at me. If she's backing up, I'm backing up, and we're going to be going opposite directions away from each other until I figure I'm safe. At that point, if I am pissed about a parking spot, I will give her the parking spot. The parking spot is not that important. Um, and then shortly after this starts, the car next to her pulls out, so if she took his parking spot, well, now the parking spot just opened up right next to her. You could have disengaged, walked away, and just backed your car into that spot and moved on in life. But it seemed like he was determined to have some conversation with her. She's walking around, walking away, and he's following her until they get back to her car, and she's backing up yet again. But then she gets to the back of her car, and he's sort of towards the front of her car. She shoots him one time in the stomach, and then puts a gun on top of the car, which is smart because law enforcement officers are going to come, and if they see a black woman standing there with a gun, there's a good chance it may not end well for her. So she did the right thing of putting the gun on top of the car and stepping away from it until the law enforcement officer came. And of course, they rushed him to the hospital, and then he was pronounced dead um, once he got to the hospital. So I don't think charges have been filed against her so far, and maybe they won't be. Maybe people look at the video and say, well, she made every attempt to de-escalate the situation. She walked away even though she didn't have to, and so she did her part. And then she said she felt threatened. You can't hear what was being said by the two of them. The camera is too far away to pick up any audio, but you could pick up the video. And since we only have her story to rely on, her um, dictation of the events, then we pretty much have to give her the benefit of the doubt because she is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So if she's presumed innocent and there's only one version of information that we have to evaluate, then we have to give her the benefit of the doubt since there's no other evidence to contradict anything that she's saying. So, you can't say she wasn't scared. She said she was scared for her life and you have nothing else to contradict that, then we have to presume that the only evidence we have at this point is that she was afraid for her life, because that's the only evidence that we have to explain what happened that motivated her to pull the trigger. And then she does have the benefit of having the video show that she tried to walk away, even though she was still pointing the gun at him, which shows, I guess, how much she was really fearful for her life. That she's walking away, she's still pointing the gun at him. She never turned her back on him, so she's walking backwards. Then she backs up and walks around another car. He sort of follows her and until they get back to her car, and then she fires a shot. So I think that's probably why she wasn't arrested on the spot and charged with murder or homicide you know or just put in investigative detention. So, but I believe the state DA, attorney general, or the county DA will look at the video, look at the evidence gathered, and make the determination. So, and when they get a determination as to whether they're going to file charges on her or not, then we'll come back and give you the update and get everybody's opinion as to whether y'all think it was fair or not. I will say this: we need to be careful that we don't start an epidemic of killing white people over stuff like this. Um, I mean, it could backfire if shoving someone justifies you stabbing them and killing them, or an argument over a parking spot justifies the person trying to talk to you justifies you pulling the trigger and shooting and killing them, then all hell is going to break loose if this continues. So at some point, I guess we have to one stop being so fearful, or just continue to walk away. There's a store there. Now, even though she wasn't required to, but she could have continued just walking to the store. Her car is already parked. She already has a spot. Lock your car up, lady. Grab your keys. Walk into the store. If he continues to follow you, then you can ask someone there at Walmart to call the police because this man's harassing you. So let's not take matters into our own hand. Even if you are afraid for your life, do everything possible to avoid any kind of deadly use of force. In this case, it may work out for this lady, but in most cases, depending on what state you're in, it may not. And so I don't want people to look at this and say, oh, well, it worked out for her. So anytime I'm afraid for my life and someone approach me, I'm just going to pull my gun out and shoot them. It's not that kind of party, people. So um, let's take this as an aberration, one off, and we'll update you as to what happens in the end. I think Tom is still trying to get on. I can hear volume, Tom. I don't see your
Can you
video.
hear
There you
me?
go. Yes, we can hear
All
you
right.
now, and the video is there.
Yeah. Yeah, this
I
is pretty crazy.
apologize. I went on and did the Florida story without you.
No
Um,
problem.
so um, so can we maybe was this young man named Mr. Wells? Was his last
Nolan
name?
Wells.
Okay.
Nolan Wells, yeah. Go ahead.
I'm going to say go ahead and catch everybody up on Nolan Wells, and then I'll chime in after.
Give me just a second, Jimmy, so I can make sure that I get everything squared away. But
Okay.
this is a very, very sad state of affairs, Jimmy. July the 4th, this young man came up missing. Of course, he is out of the state of Mississippi, and his family is looking for answers right now. It looks like he was out with a group of friends on July the 4th. They were going out, having a good time over the holiday weekend. The other friends came back for whatever reason. He did not come back. And from
When Tom explained where it went, a place called Hunt Island, right off the coast of Mississippi, and they
right.
were all in their boats and motorboats, and they floated out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, bottom line is, they said that he was supposed to be meeting someone out there in the area. And unfortunately, Jimmy, there are a lot of questions that are unanswered right now. All of them came back with the exception of him. And there are a lot of questions to be answered. It took local, state, and federal law enforcement officers, Jimmy, in the search, and they found him, unfortunately, dead. And it's just very sad state of affairs. A lot of questions to be answered right now. From my understanding, I believe they have acquired Ben Crump, who is a civil rights attorney.
Yeah, yes.
So, um,
Well, the sad thing, Tom, is this Hunt Island is about 10 miles off the coast of Mississippi. And kids go out there on the weekends, and of course, they get away from adult eyes, they get away from the police, and they go out there and smoke, drink, and do drugs, have fun. And then they boat back. You have a boat and you have some gas, and I mean, I think that's the end thing to do. Um, and these kids were coming from affluent families, and they all either had boats or access to boats. Tommy makes no sense that he goes out there with friends, and then they claim he decided that he was going to stay behind. Stay behind for what? There's nothing out there but an island. There's no development. There's no water, bathrooms. There's nothing out there. So what was he deciding to stay for? And on top of that, if you rode there with them, who in their right mind or left mind is going to say, "You guys go ahead. I'm going to stay. Y'all can leave me behind, and I'll get back somehow. I'll make my way on. I'll make my own way back." It makes no sense, Tom.
it makes no sense, Jimmy, because I mean, I'm not going to assume what did or did not happen, Jimmy, but there's clearly some foul play here. I guess let's call a spade a spade. I don't know how many total young men who were going on this event, going on this trip, Jimmy, but he just happened to be the only young man who was African American.
Right. There
Everybody,
were about 10 or 11 boats out there full of
right.
kids, about 4 or 5 to each boat, a motorboat. And right, he was the only black person there. Um, Tom, I'm just gonna go ahead and say the part out loud that you may not want to say it, but I'm gonna say it. Tom, I think they tossed him in the water. I'm not for one for conspiracy theories, but nobody is going to allow, if you rode out there on a boat, going to allow 11 boats to take off and leave you behind. And you, if he had died on the island, then I could I almost say this story is a little plausible. Still not believable, but plausible. But since he was found in the water, drowned, there's no way in the world anyone's going to allow themselves to be left on the island with no phone, no cell reception, nothing, where anyone can come pick them up. Unless he's a marathon swimmer, Tom, there's no way he's going to swim back to the coast of Mississippi. And even if he's swimming back, he still got to walk home. I don't know what little town he lived in Mississippi, but it wasn't there on the coast. So it still makes no sense to me how this boy ended up in the water dead. So somebody's got to come up with a better explanation. But so far, it seems like all the kids are sticking to that story that they left him on the island.
I would agree. I would agree with you on this one, Jimmy. And the other thing that most folks are going to say, if the, I mean, if everything was flipped on this, Jimmy, I mean, it would be a nationwide manhunt on the first place with this kid not coming home. And quite frankly, I think some of these kids would probably be in custody right now under the circumstances.
If it was reversed, Tom, one, all of them would have been rounded up for questioning one. Um, and two, it'll be, especially if it was a white woman that it happened to. If it was
Right.
a bunch of black people and then a white teenage girl ended up in the water, and all the black folks would say, "Well, she decided to stay on the island and we just left her there." Yeah, that wouldn't fly. Tom, they'd still be locked up today, being questioned. So, um, but the fact that these kids are nobody's been locked up, nobody's been detained, um, and everybody's sticking to the same story. And from what I've gathered from listening to some of the reports, Tom, these are all rich kids, all from affluent families. They all kind of know each other.
Ah, gotcha. Well, that probably is going to unfortunately tell you a lot about what is or is not going to happen in this case because, you're innocent again until proven guilty. But again, we have had way too many young black boys and girls show up coincidentally missing. We've done too many of these stories. Hung from a noose on a tree near a college campus. Um, going
That
in,
was several. We had several of those stories, didn't we? It was like a chain of them, and each time they kept saying, it was like 3 or 4 of them. They kept saying, and they was at different universities. Now, don't give me wrong, it wasn't like all on the same campus. So I thought maybe it was a serial killer, but in each case, they kept saying it was a suicide.
correct. You had one kid who I remember we did a story on probably a couple of years ago that he was going back to school, never found. His car was found someplace. The kid was found in another state, and law enforcement starts coming up with suicide. Like you're gonna literally do some of this stuff to yourself. I remember, unfortunately, Jimmy, one kid had literally had part of his head shaved off.
Well, I don't know if any of you guys ever watched the Young Turk. It's a streaming show platform that comes on online. It's the only place you can catch. It's not a TV show, but on the Young Turk, it's I think it's YTY or TYT. I think it's TYT. The Young Turk. Yeah. Um, they they pretty much said what I just said, that they suspect someone tossed him in the water. Tom, maybe something happened. Maybe he was involving a girl. Maybe it was an accident. He slipped off the boat and nobody decided to go back and get him. Who knows? But this whole we left him on the island because he didn't want to come back with us is not gonna wouldn't fly with me at all.
No, it wasn't, Jimmy. And this is where, we've had these conversations in the past. You've got to demand justice. You cannot relent until you get some answers to this. The only reason that unfortunately too many of these cases happen without any answers is because they unfortunately happen to look like you and me, and especially if they're a young black male.
Well, the Young Turk said that in some they were kind of indirectly saying that he should have known better. that one black kid among all these white kids, and they're fairly rich. They have nice motorboats, and you just trying to hang out with them, be friends. But yeah, that it's like, well, he should have known better to be hanging out with a bunch of rich white kids, and you come from the wrong side of the track, and you're just trying to fit in, but you don't fit in. You're not one of them. You're not from their community. You're not part of their crowd, so you're an outsider as far as they're concerned.
Well, either way, and I get your point. No one deserves to lose their life over it. And again, that's kind of what some people say. There are just certain unwritten rules. And just because you go to school, and Jimmy, a lot of folks, they move to wealthier neighborhoods, suburban neighborhoods, in order to get their children into better school districts and things of that nature. And this is an anomaly. I mean, I would say this is an anomaly in terms of something this tragic happening. But I am definitely waiting for more details to come out of this case to find out what happens. Again, when you have money, you can buy better. You can buy better attorneys. You can buy better protection under the law, and that's just the facts in the United States of
It
America.
is, Tom. I'm not going to deny. You don't get any argument from me there. It definitely comes down to money. When you're talking about the color of law, there is no equal protection under the law.
No,
What there is if you have enough money, you can buy your protection.
agree.
You get equal protection when you have money. Poor people, and now I'm starting to see, because I've been doing a lot of research on police brutality. Tom, white people catch just as much hell from cops as black people do. Believe it or not, we get more severe cases. They get more frequent cases, but the common denominator is cops tend to pick on poor people. If they think you're poor, uneducated, or you're not going to follow through with a complaint or a lawsuit against them, they know nobody's watching the video camera unless it goes on national TV or go viral. Otherwise, nobody cares about that body cam, and they get away with so much abusing people. And I saw one officer being deposed where he just said, "Hey, I mean, he had basically time to put the rubber gloves on, and he was searching a young man illegally. Went down his underwear under his scrotum, searching for drugs, and then turned him around and ran his finger up his rectum looking for drugs." And he thought this was okay, even though his boss is telling him, like, "Hey, man, you can't do this." He was like, "What are you talking about? We do this all the time." But he patrolled the black area of town, and he was right. The white cops in that area of town, they do this all the time. But you just happen to have one black man who decided to go file a complaint because he wasn't from there. He was actually visiting relatives who lived there. Well, otherwise, the black folks there have been so subjected to police brutality that they're too afraid to go complain.
Well, you're right, because to your point, there is not equal protection under the law. When you don't control institutions, you don't get the service that you deserve, and your constitutional rights are dubious at best.
So people, the end of the story is, even though filing a complaint is not going to do anything, they just throw them in the trash for the most part. But they are tracked and recorded. So, and the more complaints that are piled up against the officer, if the officer ever gets caught, and DOJ Civil Rights Division ever comes down to investigate the department, then those complaints become relevant when they're looking for patterns. But you have to file a complaint. Don't be afraid to go down there. A lot of people are. Don't want to walk into a police station. Don't want to cause any trouble. Don't want them to know your name and be looking for you, especially in a close knit community. So, but you have to file complaints when they violate you. You must, because if you don't, I can imagine, Tom, like the case we did a few weeks ago about the lady in Georgia. The ring bell, the ring video caught the officer beating her, and they had another officer standing right there holding her arm while he held the other arm and was beating her down. And unfortunately, Tom, it was sad that the other officer was black. He did nothing to stop this white officer from just Mike Tyson his woman down while she's on the ground. And like I said, both of them are holding her arms, one holding each, so she can't block, she can't defend herself, she can't punch back, she can't do nothing. And I know that officer was fired, but I would have fired the black cop also for standing there and not intervening. But that's what happens, Tom. And if they hadn't, if that ring bell hadn't caught that on video, he would have got away with it. He'd
And
still be working today.
and considering the number of times that it is called, Jimmy, imagine the number of times that it isn't called.
Right. And even when it is caught, Tom, I mean, Did this guy go to jail? No. Basically he's allowed to resign and he'll go work for another department. I mean that's generally the worst punishment they receive. Very seldom do cops go to jail. We can look at Rodney King, what happened with him, and those cops initially were not convicted on the beating that they put on Rodney King. They got convicted later on for civil rights violations, but that was at the federal level. But it is hard to convict cops. They know that. That's why they get away with so much, and no one's looking over their shoulder, and everybody in the system protects them. Their bosses protect them. The mayors, the county commissioners protect them. The chiefs and the deputies. Everybody's looking to protect the officers as best they can to avoid lawsuits. And while these guys and sometimes women just go out and abuse people. So
And this is one of the reasons, Jimmy, that I don't, quite frankly, believe in diplomatic immunity for law enforcement officers. I know that they have an extremely dangerous job. I know that they are in, their lives are on the line every day. And I have friends, I have relatives who have been law enforcement officers, but they should be just as accountable to the law as
they should
citizens.
be.
And whether they are law enforcement officers or whether we're talking about the politicians who run us at a local, state, or a federal level, everybody should not have different sets of laws based upon the amount of money that you have, the color that you have, or anything else. And that is the principle that is supposed to make this country great, that, quite frankly, we still just have not gotten there yet.
Well, so Tommy mentioned qualified immunity, and for those that don't know, that's not a statute. That's actually case law. It comes from the 1871 Civil Rights Act that was put into place. It was really put there to protect against the Klan, but the courts, to include the Supreme Court, ruled in their interpretation of one of the provisions in there. They carved out qualified immunity for state officials. They wanted to keep slaves from being able to go sue state officials for violating their civil rights. Now that they were allowed to be citizens, the 14th Amendment had passed that offered them equal protection under the law, which meant that, hey, and if the statute of limitations hadn't run out on a crime that you committed against me, I can still sue you. Well, there are a lot of people, rich people, plantation slave owners, former slave owners, politicians who were slave owners who abused people, and they will be subject to have lawsuits filed against them. So the courts basically carved out qualified immunity for them, and we've been living with that monstrosity ever since. Um, it is one of the worst decisions the Supreme Court ever came up with, and then the reluctance to overturn such a major piece of our jurisprudence. I don't know how it survived this long time, but it's still legal law. Never passed by statute, just passed by court decision. But it is the worst monstrosity because it makes it very difficult to sue law enforcement officers for the things they do.
Agreed. Jimmy, we have about 10 minutes left in the show. We need to get to our next story, Jimmy. And this is
What's our
one,
next story? What do you have?
Jimmy, probably one of the most prolific players in NFL history, Aurelius James Simpson, who,
I thought you were going to say the juice.
well,
Uh,
he
yeah,
is
I
no
was thinking
doubt.
about. I was thinking about Chicago's running back, Sweetness,
Oh, no, Walter Payton.
Walter Payton.
Well, for those of you who follow football, and I wouldn't have known this otherwise, but the Bills ownership is building a new stadium for the Buffalo Bills. Of course, they do this to make money. It's a business deal, but probably the greatest Buffalo Bill in the history of the franchise. But quite frankly, I don't think the franchise would be anything without him. Orenthal James Simpson, is his legacy is going to be erased from the annals of Bills history on their new stadium. From my understanding, the reports are stating that there will be no mention, images,
None.
or likenesses of Orenthal James Simpson in the new Bill Stadium. Of course, this is because, of course, of off-field incidences. Of course, the man has been deceased for some years now, but because of the off-field incidents having to do, of course, with the case, the greatest case, probably. Well, I won't say the greatest case. Well, I might say the greatest case, if top five in the history of the United States, especially in terms of media glamorization. Jimmy has infused itself into the legacy and the annals of sports, and I thought it was quite interesting that when you name all of the other great Bills players, the Thurman Thomas, Jim Kelly, you know, even current players involved who will be honored in that new stadium, Orenthal James Simpson will not be one of them. And I understand and get it from some people's point of view that his off-field legacy has tarnished his history. But Jimmy, I will have to say this is not one of the greatest Buffalo Bills in history. This is one of the greatest players in the history of the NFL. And the last time I checked, in the criminal case, the last time I recall, he was found not guilty. Understanding that he was found culpable in a civil lawsuit. But
Right.
this is a very interesting story that we must talk about for at least a couple of minutes.
Well, you're right. He was found not guilty on the criminal charge of 2 counts of capital murder,
Right.
but he was found civilly liable, which
Mhm.
in civil court the standards are a lot lower. Not the It's more the preponderance of evidence as opposed to beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's two different standards. On top of that, Tommy, I mean, he was convicted of trying to, I guess, steal back his own merchandise that was stole from him, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around that crime. Um, but that's what he was actually ended up being serving some time for and was convicted for. But in the based on what he contributed to the game of football, Tom, and what he was actually convicted for, I'm thinking the Bills could have still included him if all you was convicted of is stealing your own personal merchandise back from someone who stole it from you, or it came up missing out of his storage locker, and somehow he found a collector in Vegas who was trying to sell some of the stuff, and he went there pretending to buy it back, and he ended up taking his stuff back. But he probably should have called the police and said, "Hey, this is my stolen merchandise," and then let them deal with it. Uh, but if you or I did that time, I think we probably get a tap on the wrist and first time offenders, or if nothing at all. But since it was OJ and the legal system figured he got off with killing 2 people, they were going to try to get him for something. So I thought the verdict was a little harsh for a person who was for the first time conviction for stealing stolen merchandise. So, but I think the Bills should still honor him, Tom, for what he's done for football, what he did for the organization, and to leave him out like that. No matter what you think about
That's
him
foul.
personally,
That's straight
he
foul.
he still his body of work for football is what he should be judged on when it comes to football. Now, if you want to judge his personal life, you want to build a library and name it after him or something that's different. But for football and for what he did for the Bills, they should honor him for that.
I would agree, Jimmy. And again, it's a business decision. It's a political decision. There is no way that you can even call a new stadium that honors their great Bills legitimate without his name on it. It was several years before his rushing records were broken in the NFL. Of course, he is a Hall of Famer. You know, unfortunately, he was never able to carry them to the Super Bowl, but he was practically the for what it's worth, probably the thing that was even keeping the team relevant at that point in time. And it's not just what he did for the Buffalo Bills organization, but what he did for the NFL. You've got to remember, this was really one of the first, if not the first man to have mainstream commercials. The juice on the Avis commercials. I mean, orange juice. It wasn't just for the Bills. It was for the entire league that he literally held the league up on his shoulders and made it viable. I wouldn't say he's the greatest running back. That's in my opinion Jim Brown, but
Yes, Jim Brown.
he would be definitely in a top three to top five, especially from the old school backs who played how many games back then, Jimmy?
They played 12 back then
Yeah, they played 12 games back then, and
in the
considering
70s.
you can't even put them. It was a much rougher game back then too, Jimmy.
And for what he did, for what Jim Brown did, for people who played in that era, Tom, they play a lot. I mean, like today they play 18 games. And
Yes,
sometimes with 18 games, you playing 6 more games, and some of these runners still can't get 1,000 yards.
right.
Um,
And this dude
can
hit 2,000.
Yes. And so, but on top of that, Tommy, he had the looks. He had to be. He looked like a football player. I mean, Jim Brown had the power and the speed, um, but 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 OJ, he had the finesse. He had the style. I mean, he ran with grace. It wasn't. I mean, he was powerful and fast. But you like you could watch him and you were entertained by watching him run. So, and you're right. I mean, he basically not just for the Bills, but for the entire NFL. I mean, he was the face of it for many years. I mean, he
And
was the star.
Jimmy, he played the role. He said the right thing.
He did.
We okay for those of you out there who know what I'm talking about. He said the right things. He did the right things. He had the right look. He did not rock the boat.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. So he didn't get caught up in any kind of civil rights movement or protest. He was not that. He was not vocal. You're right. So he played his part, man, and he was the face of the NFL for many years. He was the biggest star going. And like I said, everybody remember those Avis commercials when they're running through the airports.
Go run, OJ, run. And let's be honest, Jimmy. As long as you're making money for him, that's all that really matters. But after the money, and this is the message to a lot of folks who are out there: never think that you are bigger than the money that they are making for you today.
Well, Tom, I'm going to tell you, when I started my career, probably like most people, and when I see it today, man, I just smile at these young people because they think their job is so important. They think they're important to the company. And the first time I got laid off, I realized what my importance. I thought if I didn't come to work, the company was going to have to close down. That's how important I was, even though I was the low man on the totem pole. But you think that way that the company needs you and your job is important and people are counting on you. You know what? It took me a little while to finally figure out that um, as a consultant and contractor, which is why I stopped working on a W-2 and working for people and just decided to sell my own services. When I invoice you and you pay my invoice, our relationship starts over. You can tell me to go kick sand, or I can tell you I'm not coming back. But you pay me for the work that I do. Like I said, I submit an invoice, you write me a check. I have no delusion about what our relationship is. You don't owe me a job. You don't owe me. You only owe me the work for which I've done. After that, once you pay me, we start back from zero. So, people, what Tommy just said is correct. Do not ever think that you are too important to a company. You're just part of the process to make money for those who own it. That's all you are, and you're dispendable. They will replace you in a heartbeat, and when you can no longer make money for them, then you're out the pasture. So you can sacrifice. This is why I don't suggest anyone take a pay cut. Don't leave money on the table. Bronson, i.e. Bronson, and I know Brady did it with the Patriots,
Yes, he did.
but if you can afford to do it because he's a billionaire. I guess do it for the sake of the team to win championships, but don't be disillusioned in thinking that the Patriots owe you something or your employer owes you something for the sacrifices that you make for them. And people go to work early, they work late, they give up their personal life, they're working on weekends, they're on call, they have equipment at home so they can work remote, and you end up working 16, 17 hours a day for an employer, and then the first time you miss a day and don't call in, they're on your ass about something. So yeah, don't be disillusioned in thinking that you are an important part of you're just a piece of the machinery, and that piece can be replaced. And they don't have any loyalty towards you. And personally, I wouldn't have any loyalty towards them other than what they owe me for the work that I put in. They don't owe me a job, and I don't owe them my services. So when y'all decide to end it, or I decide to end it, then we just part ways. No hard feelings.
Facts, facts. And with that being said, Jimmy, we are now at the top of the hour again. I want to personally apologize for the technical difficulties that I
What
had.
time? If we have another story out there that we didn't cover, we can take maybe 5 minutes to cover anything that we covered. Florida, we covered Wales, we covered OJ. The tennis story. Did you want to
Yeah,
do a
very,
quick,
very, very, very brief. And,
very
and
quickly?
I again, I don't really follow Wimbledon that often, but It looks like there was it wasn't a shook up the world moment, but Naomi Osaka, who actually is from Japan, she's part African American, part black, part
Yes.
Japanese, beat the number one ranked Sabalenka. I cannot pronounce her first, probably not with very much credibility, to pronounce her first name. And it was interesting because I saw the article about it and I was like, oh, well, this is great for Osaka. But it seemed like all the articles were pretty much about booing Sabalenka, who I guess was frustrated and knocked the ball out and people booed her and stuff like that. And this was not, again, the finals of the Wimbledon per se, but she ended up beating someone who nobody anticipated she was. She ended up going into the semifinals, which I think they're going to continue this week. And so as a result of that, I anticipate and wish her the best of luck in the next round. I don't think she's ever won at Wimbledon before, but I thought it was quite interesting. And this is the other thing that you have to consider on the narrative that are created in the news is that they craft what people think, and so you have to look critically beyond what the titles or the headlines of, and really dig deeper than that, which is what we seek to do, so that you can understand what and how to think, as opposed to allowing someone to think before you, as opposed to congratulating and applauding one of the top tennis professionals in the world. It really was the focus was kind of shifted off of her beating the number one player in the world, and really about what somebody else did.
Well, Tom, that may be something indicative of women's tennis, because I remember a few years ago when Coco won the U.S. Open, she
Mhm.
went through a similar kind of event that she beat someone who was ranked a little higher than her, that she wasn't expected to win, to beat, and this girl was really upset, act a fool. I mean, it was all in her face,
Right, right,
very
right.
disrespectful, and rather than the tennis industry just coming down on this player for her unsportsmanlike behavior, they just kind of looked the other way for the most part. Left Coco Watson to kind of speak to her and defend herself, but she handled it with class. But so this may just be indicative of women's tennis. I don't know because we don't have that many black women playing. But and maybe it's just a few players here and there that is so competitive and people are so emotional about it. Let's just hope that this is an aberration, a one-off time, and it's not a pattern.
Jimmy, it's always a pattern. It always happens. I mean, nobody's going to protect our women, our children, but us. And unless we own and control the institutions that do so, you can't expect anything different.
Well, let's hope you're wrong, Tom. Let's hope things are changing or continue to improve. Where this is not done, it becomes a non event in the future. So that maybe just go away and things get better on their own. So we'll see. But
I
anyway,
don't.
people,
I
we
don't
will
anticipate they're going to get better on their own, Jimmy.
some of the stories that we covered tonight. We will do follow ups if there's any new information that comes by next week, and if not, then we will have new interesting stories to talk about. Um, and we apologize for some of the technical delays. It does happen every now and then with technology, so just bear with us. But we want to thank everyone who showed up tonight watching. And like I said, if you're watching the show live, bring a frenemy, a neighbor, a coworker, or a family member, so you guys have something interesting to talk about for the rest of the week. With that being said, Tom, take us out.
Want to thank everybody who is listening to us tonight, and of course, we hope to see you next week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you very much.
Bye bye, everyone.